Hey guys, Sawbuck here, the Accidental Trucker, and today I'm going to tell you how this all started. I was working in the medical field on and off for 20 years. The last 8 years of it was at a psych hospital. I was part of administration and training and development, staff and patients. Wrote a lot of the training material for the staff and a workbook about 80 pages for the patient training programs on psychoeducation, such as anger management, stress management, healthy relationships, healthy communication, that type of thing. And my best friend died. He was 37 and dropped dead of a massive heart attack in the parking lot where he worked. Went outside to get some fresh air. He was feeling pretty stressed out and walked out and hit the ground. At this psych hospital, someplace where people go for grief counseling, and addiction and psychosis, you name it, and people showed up there for it. PTSD, treated a lot of veterans. If there's any veterans out there watching, thank you so much for your service, and do not be ashamed to seek help. My best friend dies, and this is somebody who I had known pretty much all my life, and I don't have a lot of friends. I have a lot of acquaintances, but not, real friends. And I have a terrible memory. He was my memory because if I couldn't remember something that had happened, I was in a car wreck, and it kind of messed with my memory a little bit. So if I was thinking about something but I couldn't remember all the details, I'd call him up. Hey, well, remember that time? He'd be like, oh yeah, well, what can't you remember of it? He would just know. So, and he would fill me in on that information. So lost my friend, lost another chunk of my memory, the only person that could verify some stories or tell me about some things. So it was a massive change. Needless to say, it was a stressful period. And you would think that being in a psych hospital around therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, nurses galore, what we call program counselors, which is pretty much the CNA of the psych hospital. If you don't know what a CNA is, they're most famous for being glorified butt wipers and diaper changers and feeders at nursing homes. I was also one of those years ago. Being a program counselor, not necessarily the most glorified job in the world. Much run security in the psych hospital. You would expect a lot of support, and I didn't get it. And I went to people and I told them what was going on, and I needed a break. So I took a few days off. They were fine with that. So when I came back to a job offer. And it wasn't your ordinary job offer. A manager asking me to do my current job, which took me, 50 plus hours a week to do, and do another job that would put me in charge of 3 units. 2 acute units, which had the sickest people in the hospital, who I personally loved. You can treat sickness, you can't treat crazy, and there's a big difference. Crazy is those people who get along day to day that don't have any chemical imbalances. A lot of them act like children. They need drama. They're attention seeking. They just never really grow up, and they think that the problem is everybody else. Oh, I can't get away from this drama. I can't get away from this all these trouble. Oh, the world sucks. The world sucks. Everything's unfair. No. When the problem is everybody else, 99.9% of the time, the problem is actually you. So that's crazy. Sick is the chemical imbalance that medication can help. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, things like that. Depression. This job offer was by a young manager. She had a lot of, I can't say a lot, she had some experience in management. She had gone through all the classes and was very textbook smart. Honestly, she was a dingbat. She was just dingy and And I liked her. She was very encouraging, fun to be around. She was all about her star performers, which she always considered me, until I turned down this job offer because it was going to have me working 100 hours a week in 40 hours. And I mean that literally. I was going to have to pull 100 hours worth of work into 40 hours and be paid for 40 hours. It wasn't going to happen. It was going to pull me away from training and development, which I absolutely loved, and I did not feel that I could do all of it. So I turned it down, and when I did, she literally bulldogged me over the desk. Turned her hands in, stood up, leaned over the desk, got about 6 inches from my face, and said, Ryan, I thought you were a team player. There's consequences for not being a team player. A week later, I was terminated. Called one of my, who's an attorney, and he took care of that situation for me. Of course, in Tennessee, all the laws are there to protect the employer, not the employee. So even to get unemployment, I had to sue them for that, which I won because of the grounds that I was terminated on. I said a bad word. And not at anybody, just to someone, and they terminated me for it. And what it really came down to was this particular manager pushing me out the door. I go from that world to working at a bowling alley because I'm a very avid bowler. I absolutely love it. And I knew the owner of our local bowling alley. He started me doing some little side jobs to kick me some cash, and eventually he had to terminate one of his employees for various reasons, just about everything that a bad employee can do. He said, hey, I've got a full-time position available. Cool. Well, at that time, I was also working very diligently to become a United States Postal Service employee. And I became a what they call an RCA, Rural Carrier Associate. Some call it a Rural Carrier Assistant. I was a sub to work Saturdays, and I did these jobs for a couple of years. I was, plus general handyman type stuff. The lawyer friend of mine that I referred to earlier, he bought a house, wanted it remodeled, jumped in there, pulling sheetrock and replacing some studs where there was a roof leak, ripping up carpet and pad, putting down hardwood, laying tile, having to level floors. It was an older house, it settled out, floors weren't level. It was a nightmare, but he paid me well for it, and didn't charge me for taking my case against this previous psych hospital. With doing 3 jobs, one full-time, one part-time, as far as post office, and then there being some conflicts there causing stress because if my regular route carrier wanted to take a day off, I may not find out until 5:30 in the morning when my phone rings. And if it was a day I was scheduled to work at the bowling alley, well, it's U.S. government. They got to come first. I took an oath when I started working for the post office, so I had to be there. For any business with limited number of employees or on salary, having somebody cover for me, that became very stressful, and it created a stressful environment at that job, and it didn't pay very well. He paid me as well as he could. I couldn't expect the same salary that I was working in healthcare for. Needless to say, I spent the past 2 years extremely stressed out, and I become ever more tired of working 3 jobs for the price of 1. And I had worked at a trucking company back years ago. I worked for Watkins Trucking when I first moved to Tennessee back in 2000. And I worked there from 2001 to 2004. Great company to work for. I know they closed our terminal here, and I haven't seen any trucks in years, so I don't know if the company itself is shut down completely or not. If they are around, maybe one day I'll end up driving for them. Before I moved here, I knew a few people that were truck drivers. One of them owned a company. He had a small company. He had like 17 or 23 trucks. Can't remember which. Those 2 numbers stick out in my head though. I could be off. But anyway, it was around 20 trucks. And he invited me out on the road with him back right after Christmas in '99. So we left out December 26th of '99, and I ended up staying out with him for a month. We were running this massive Volvo. I can't remember what it was. The biggest Volvo that you could get at the time. It's a 48-foot reefer. We picked up in Corinth, Mississippi, at the Bulk Mail Postal Center there, and dropped off in Salt Lake City, Portland, Oregon. 2 stops in Seattle. We emptied in Federal Way, Washington. Then we went over to Dole, to the orchards. We picked up apples and pears and ran them down to Miami. This was at the beginning of the year, the end of the year of '99, beginning of 2000. So I'm looking at Y2K while I'm out there on the road. Ended up spending the night in Boise, Idaho, which was a blast. Ended up being a massive party. I never would have expected that out of Boise, but that was cool. I can't remember if it was what truck stop it was, but that was a good time. After we end up reloading up there at Dole, the guy I was with, Ray, he become very ill. Basically said, look, my company is pretty much at stake. You've got to drive. Now, honestly, at the time, I kind of figured it was illegal for me to drive. I didn't have a CDL, didn't have a permit. But I wasn't sure. And if it's got wheels, I can pretty much drive it. He wasn't asking me to back, which I didn't have hardly any experience backing any type of trailer, much less a 48-foot trailer. He just wanted me to get at least back to Georgia where we lived at the time. Everything was fine. Ended up going through all the way stations fine until we're going from Chattanooga down into Georgia, and unfortunately I got the ex. I'm screaming and yelling at him to get up because he was asleep in the sleeper berth. Like I said, he was very sick. And he wouldn't come out, and he says, "I just roll through. They'll pass you by." And he didn't understand that, no, they weren't rolling us through like everybody else had. We had to stop and wait. So I pull up, and I'm freaking out because I know I'm going to jail. I didn't know what the penalty was. Of course, through my mind, it's worst case scenario. And I pull up, get weighed, and we're at like 84,500. For those of you watching this that aren't truck drivers or don't know anything much about the industry, you're just thinking about getting started, maximum weight is 80,000 pounds unless you're running oversized load. So we were 4,500 pounds overweight. The numbers pop up on the screen. Of course, it's got the steer, the drive, and the tandems. And about the time it flashes up, I notice out of my left side that a truck flies by. A patrol officer inside the weigh station, or the chicken coop, comes over the intercom and says, "Well, driver, looks like it's your lucky day. We've got enough work to do. Somebody just blew the coop." And here comes a officer running out and jumping in his car and taking off. He says, "Have a good day and be safe." Luckiest thing that's ever happened to me, because the amount of trouble that we would have been in. I ended up staying on with him. It took us 8 days to make that turnaround down to Miami and back, and it was a good time, good experience, but I never really thought much about it as far as doing it as a career. And then I meet somebody when I'm working at the psych hospital who had their CDL. He went through a few jobs after he left. He was terminated by the same manager. She's not there anymore. It was proven she had an issue with men, massive authority issue. Even though she's hiring subordinates, not bosses, but she doesn't care for them very much. Anyway, he came to work with me part-time at the bowling alley. Eventually, he drove a school bus. He worked for a company hauling boat trailers. He worked for Camping World out of Indiana. A lot of different jobs. We were talking about working together, kept talking about it for like a year. Then his mother passed. Right before she passed away, he broke down on the road a lot. Stupid little things happening, stupid big things happening. Absolutely terrible luck out there on the road. Meanwhile, his mom's in the hospital. She's got cancer, and he's terrified that she's going to pass without him being home, and would be a very scary thing. So understandably, he didn't want to go back out on the road. So all the talk that we had about he and I teaming up together, that pretty much ended there, and I can't blame him. You know, if I'd gone through that, I know myself, I'd do the exact same thing. I have no hard feelings toward him at all. He's one of the best friends that I've ever had. We can go a month or 2 months without talking, pick back up like it was nothing, and not begrudge each other for it. That's what got me thinking about trucking, talking to him. Now, in my next video, I will talk about truck driving school, Covenant Transport, who I'm going to go work for, which I start in just a couple days for orientation. I was supposed to start Monday, but I've been pushed off till Wednesday. I will get into all that, give you my detailed report on Tennessee Truck Driving School. I don't want to watch all of it. I encourage you to. I'm going to tell you some important things that you need to know before you go to any truck driving school. I will say that Tennessee Truck Driving School has probably of the best instructors I've ever known. And again, I was in training and development, so I really know what makes a good instructor, and they are absolutely amazing. And Tennessee Truck Driving School has no idea I'm making this video. I'm not getting paid anything to say that. I wish I was, but I'd say the exact same thing regardless. I'm well known by friends, acquaintances, and family for not just telling the truth, but telling the harsh truth. So you can count on me to be upfront and honest with you when you ask me questions or when I tell you something. It's absolutely going to be 100% there, whether by fact or by, if it's something subjective by my opinion. So anyway, thanks for watching, and please share, like, subscribe. I'm going to vlog this whole experience with truck driving school and with my years to come. So thanks again. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. See you in the next video.